Well. I like the call, Bud. Going a little Black Keys action to round up Week 14, the final week of the regular season. It's Rivalry Week here in the League of Legends 2014. My name is Drew Garino. Feel free to check out the alternate video this week that's going to give you the up-to-date playoff scenarios that exist in the League of Legends right now. But we first want to say congratulations to both Cam and Bud, who have secured their spots in the big dance in the League of Legends. Now, will it be a clean sweep for the Ahern household? Ryan's got a shot to make the playoffs. Will the Doolins spoil the party with both Dennis and Sean currently in playoff positions? Or will the Dark Horse by Katy Perry featuring Juicy J, aka Bill and Drew, spoil the fun by making a unheralded playoff run as we get to the last week of the regular season? So we're not going to get into too much of the playoff scenarios in this particular segment. Again, to update you on how it's gone for me in the predictions. Last week was a 3-2 week for me, bringing my total on the regular season to 42-28. So pretty strong performance there in the predictions for last week and on the season. But let's not waste any further time. Bill versus Steve is the first matchup we're going to be looking at. Bill was able to stay alive in the playoff hunt with a big victory over Adam, while Steve shocked the world by taking down Ryan and putting himself in a good position to avoid getting the pink shirt for the second consecutive year. Last week, Bill was the beneficiary of a monstrous 44-point performance from DeAndre Hopkins, and wouldn't you know it, he's got Jacksonville this week, so that's a green light start for Bill. Gronk was relatively quiet last week in Green Bay. Even though Bill put up 195 points, he didn't need him that much. This week, San Diego has done a nice job against the tight ends. They've given up the third fewest points to tight ends this year, so Gronk's going to have to earn it for Bill this week. I am a little concerned about two starters for Bill's side right now. He's got Reggie Wayne and Denard Robinson in there. Reggie Wayne has only scored 11 points combined in the last 2 weeks, and Robinson played less than 50% of the snaps for Jacksonville last week, so need to see some performances from them in order to give Bill a good shot at winning this particular matchup. Kendall Wright was huge for Steve last week. He was dancing his way to 26 points on the outing. If he can somehow replicate that against the Giants on Sunday, that's going to go a long way for Steve's chances at knocking off his son. Steve Smith has been really struggling for Bill of late, but that really benefits Torrey Smith, who is on Steve's roster right now. He's had 3 good performances in the last 3 weeks, and the Dolphins may focus on taking away Steve Smith, which could open up things for Torrey Smith. Although he had a 1.5 measly point total last week, Delaney Walker, I like his chances to get in the end zone. Just a hunch. But I will say, when we look at the prediction for this one, that I liked what I saw from Calvin Johnson last week, and he's got the Bucs on Sunday. I just don't think Steve's going to have enough to be able to pull off 2 big upsets in a row, so I'm going to go with Bill to take this one and give himself a shot at the playoffs. Next matchup we will look at is Drew, myself, versus Adam. Mathematically, I'm still alive in the playoff hunt, but I'm going to need a win and some help, while Adam is hoping that a victory will take him out of last place and avoid getting the pink shirt for the second year in our 4-year league's history. The 2 pieces that Drew added from Ryan in a trade a couple weeks ago have really paid dividends down the stretch. He's had A.J. Green perform very well in the last 2 weeks, and also C.J. Anderson, who has clearly taken the number 1 spot at running back for the Broncos. I like A.J. Green a lot this week. He's got a really favorable matchup, so I'm looking for him to have a big game. Randall Cobb was able to exploit Logan Ryan and Fonzie Dennard last week. Now he's got Atlanta on the Monday night game, which should be a pretty good start there for him. For Drew, if you want to look at some areas of concern, Larry Donnell is back at starting at tight end. Could be a questionable start. And also for the third wide receiver position, it's between Julian Edelman and Keenan Allen. Julian Edelman's a little banged up right now, and Keenan Allen may see a little bit of Darrelle Revis there, so it's really a toss-up there. Drew's going to need some production out of the third spot in order to have a shot at winning this week. Adam really can't be upset about the 2 running backs he's traded for over the last few weeks. Justin Forsett from Sean and Jamal Charles from Drew have both been really strong performers for Adam here in the last few weeks. Even with Calvin Johnson returning to the lineup, Golden Tate, another acquisition from Adam, is putting together 2 productive weeks since Calvin's returned. Call me crazy, but I think he's going to find the end zone this week against Tampa Bay. Kyle Rudolph is back in the lineup for Minnesota, and he scored a touchdown last week. The Jets have been just awful against tight ends So if he can score a touchdown, Rudolph's done his job. If not, I think there's going to be some problems there for Adam. Really some shaky starts for Adam, particularly at the wide receiver position with Eric Decker. So I think Drew's going to have enough to be able to win this one and at least give himself a chance at making it to the big dance. Now we're going to look at Dennis versus Bud. Dennis is hoping to make a very clean entry into the playoff picture. All he has to do is win. Bud is going for that number one spot. So if he's able to win with a Cam loss, he could elevate himself into the number one spot in the League of Legends. With Dennis, it's pretty much the same story, different chapter. You really can always count on Drew Brees, Dez Bryant, Demaryius Thomas. They're three strong starts. I wouldn't expect anything less from them this week. We've talked a lot about Sammy Watkins over the year and his injury issues. He's been able to fight through it. He left the game a little bit last week, but he's still got the high target totals for the Bills. If he can tough out another one, that's going to go a long way for Dennis's chances at getting into the playoffs. For Dennis, you got to look at three guys this week: Miller, Crowell, Gates. Those are the three. If they're able to produce, Dennis is going to have a great shot at winning this week against Bud. Speaking of Bud, he's going to benefit from having three players in the Monday night game. He's got Rodgers going, Nelson, and Julio Jones. They're all in line for big weeks. It's going to be a throwing fest in Green Bay on Monday night. A guy I look at with great intrigue is Boom Herron. We talked a little bit about him last week. Very, very interesting situation in Indy right now because the Colts, for some inexplicable reason, believe that Trent Richardson, remember him? Trent Richardson? He is a capable running back. I don't see it. He's really hindering Herron's fantasy production. So it's just a matter of time before the Colts figure out that Richardson's not the answer. Herron's the guy, and that's going to benefit Bud. Mark Ingram has dealt with the return of Pierre Thomas nicely. He had 23 carries last week. I expect the Saints to go up big in this week's matchup against Carolina, which could mean a healthy dose of the former Heisman Trophy winner. This one has all the makings for a high-scoring affair. With that being said, I like the three players that are going to be going for Bud on Monday Night Football, and I like his chances of winning this one and making things a little bit more interesting for Dennis as he tries to make the playoffs. Now we're going to get into the real nitty-gritty. The spot is number 4 seed that's up for grabs. And the first matchup we'll look at is Sean versus Dave. Now, Sean's really in the battle of his life to hold on to that last spot in the playoffs. Well, Dave is trying to play spoiler here and keep Sean from making the playoffs for the 4th consecutive season. Somehow, some miraculous stroke of luck, Sean was able to procure the services of one Anthony Romo for tonight's matchup against Chicago. Should be a fantastic start there. Chicago's in shambles, as we've talked about, so Romo is in line for a very large performance. Where, oh where, has James Graham gone? Last week, Drew Brees, 5 touchdowns. How many targets did Jimmy Graham have in that game? Not touchdowns, targets. 0, zilch, nada. Need Jimmy Graham back for Sean to have a shot at winning this potential matchup. Now, Sean's rolling out some questionable wide receivers, in my opinion. A little worried about Charles Johnson. We talked a little bit about him last week. But I do think that Marquise Lee, the second-round pick out of USC, he had a touchdown for Jacksonville last week, and he had 8 targets. So that's encouraging. If he can somehow replicate that performance, that really will help Sean as he attempts to hold off Dave in this week's matchup. Now, Dave certainly found some gold with Odell Beckham Jr. I foresee Beckham being Dave's keeper for next year. Just call me crazy, but that's my hunch that Dave and Jess, gotta shout out Jess, that Beckham will be the keeper for Dave next year. Now, Dave absolutely needs some production out of his 2 running backs. Shane Vereen hasn't made that fantasy jump that we thought he would, and Jeremy Hill right now is in that committee situation because Gio Bernard is back in the fold. So those are the 2 that I'm watching to see. Another guy I'm watching is Marquise Colston. If it were me, I'm done with Marquise Colston. I'm sick of his mediocre performances. He's been flatlined all season. I need to see something large from Marquise Colston. Maybe this is the week, but you just never know with the Saints. Now, a lot of this matchup really hinges on the fact of Roddy White's availability this week. Now, he's got that game against Green Bay on Monday Night Football. All signs pointing to him playing. I need to see some production out of him because Sean's other wide receivers are a little shaky right now, and I'm also not wild about Joique Bell this week with the return of Reggie Bush. Now, I'm going to go and be crazy for a second here and say that Dave actually has a shot at winning this game. Screw it. I'm going to take Dave. Dave, don't let me down here. You got a shot at winning this game. Don't let me down. Now, that brings us to the final matchup, the match of the week. We have Cam, number one Cam versus Ryan. Again, Cam has done a great job holding on to that top spot for the majority of the season, and he hopes to ride that right into the playoffs, while Ryan, again, fighting for his life here in the playoff scenarios. It's really a must-win situation right now for Ryan. Since Brandon Cooks went down, I love what I've seen from Kenny Stills recently. He combined Stills with Josh Gordon, who we talked about last week, and I like the way Cam's looking at the wide receiver position going into the playoffs. Russell Wilson was a little down last week in a win against the Niners, but I like his chance of going into Philly and having a big performance. Mentioned also a little bit earlier with Joy Bell that Reggie Bush is back in the lineup. I think it's going to be a good start for him. I'm expecting Bush to come back, see some carries, and contribute because I think he's healthy for the first time in a while. So I like for Reggie Bush's chances, not only this week, but also in the future. Now, Ryan did get some good news today. It was announced that Alshon Jeffrey will be in the lineup tonight against the Cowboys. So I'm anticipating that he's going to be active and receive a lot of targets. I also was encouraged by what I saw from Matt Ryan last week. He had a big game against Arizona. You would expect that he will also be throwing the ball a lot on Monday against the Packers in a big throw situation. So I'm looking for Matt Ryan to have another good game here. However, the bad news for Ryan is that he currently has a lot of holes on his roster. He's dealing with some injury issues at the running back position. Andre Ellington, sorry about that one. Andre Ellington's dealing with an injury. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to go this weekend. And also Rashard Jennings is dealing with an injury that forced him to leave the game last week. So Ryan's going to need to plug those holes, and it's going to be a big, big managerial decision as to who will start if those two guys aren't able to go this week. Now, I like the starters that Ryan has in there at the moment. It's the holes that are really bothering me. I don't see how they're going to be able to plug in and match the point total that Cam's going to put up this week. So I like for Cam to have a shot at winning this one and riding that number one seed into the playoffs. Now, best of luck to everyone who is in a fight of their lives for the playoff seedings. This is the fun part. It's rivalry week. Enjoy it. Last week, the regular season. Hope you enjoyed the predictions and the playoff special that we did for you tonight. Best of luck. Godspeed.